Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Ismet, and I'm from the Minority Shareholders Watch Group. Together with me is my colleague, Mei Kim, and what we're planning to do today is to share with you on two parts. Number one is actually on with regards to the issues and concerns, the gaps that MSWG found in sustainability reporting, for which for us, when we found gaps in sustainability reporting, is pretty much there should be a gap in their practices of listed companies. And we will share some of evidences that we found and feedback that we found. And on the second part of this session, I'll pass it over and hand it over to Mei Kim, who will then take you through the latest amendments to the listing requirements on the sustainability reporting framework and the initiative undertaken by the government, particularly led by SC, on enhancing reporting framework, sustainability reporting framework in Malaysia. So just a quick introduction of MSWG. Well, the Minority Shareholders Watch Group, technically we are an investor activist. We represent the voice and interests of minority shareholders in Malaysia. We are independently funded by the government, so we don't take money from corporates, so that in order for us to maintain our independence. We were established as part of the government initiative in the year 2000 to enhance shareholder activism, governance, as well as sustainability. What we do is, technically, one of the things that we do in MSWG is to monitor our listed companies in terms of how well they perform and also how well they have maintained and managed the shareholders' interests, particularly the minorities. Our portfolios covers, at this juncture, about 450 listed companies that we monitor. That is pretty much roughly about half of those listed companies listed on Bursa Malaysia. And we cover those that top 100 listed companies, some mid-cap and some small-cap as well. And that is cut across 12 states in Malaysia, north, south, even up to the Borneos as well. So what do? We are shareholders of these 450 listed companies. We are not rich. We are only holding like 100 lot shares. This is to allow us to attend, speak, and vote at general meetings, but technically make noise. I'm short of lying down in front of the office of the company. We don't do that. But we go to general meetings. We raise questions. I always say this, but a lot of people say, don't say, is that the more that corporates don't like us, the better we are lah. Because technically, we are supposed to be the watchdog. So technically, for the 450 listed companies, every year at the very least, we look at their corporate reporting, annual reports, circulars, sustainability report. We look cover to cover. We help minority shareholders to understand what is being reported. So we simplify it in many forms, through TikTok videos, through many channels. And technically we go and then we send letters to the company, typically 5 days before the general meetings, asking various questions. And our questions to the companies covers, number 1, financial, number 2, operational, number 3, governance, and most recently that we started last year was actually to look at sustainability matters. Last year, we had 2 thematic questions that we asked. Thematic question means that it's the same question that we ask cut across all 450 listed companies. Those 2 questions are, number 1, on gender diversity on board. Very interesting responses that we got, but okay, we'll put that separately another day for discussion. But the other question that we ask cut across all 450 companies are actually on climate crisis. How are they managing climate issues, particularly in their business operations? So I'll share with you later some of the findings that we had and the gaps that we found, not just in their practices, but also their disclosures. So last year, in addition to covering these 450 listed companies, we attended 500 general meetings, and this cut across 12 states, like I mentioned earlier. We raised on the floor questions on climate. I've mentioned this few times already in my speaking engagement. I have been shushed many times by the chairman of listed companies on issues relating to climate, particularly those small companies. Some said to me that they are is the phase where they are trying to even recover from pandemic. That's real. I think a lot of companies are still recovering to that. And now they are stuck with Uncle Trump's new policy. So, but somebody have to raise this. Somebody have to push for this agenda. Economy-wise, yes, that's fair. But at the end of the day, we can't shove this down the table on issues related to climate. Why? Last year, I give you an example. We had this company in south of Malaysia. I think I've raised this in NCGS last year, where the company relies heavily on the supply of cocoa from Sierra Leone because we don't have cocoa anymore in Malaysia. The company didn't diversify. So the problem is that when the company didn't diversify and rely heavily on cocoa to produce chocolates, the problem is we are going to lose cocoa very much soon in 2030. Most can go up to 2040. Just imagine in the perspective of us as minority shareholders or shareholders of the company, what will happen to our company investment. If I put up my life saving, which some of the shareholders do, put up their life saving into buying equities or stock markets, then what will happen to that investment? So the question that we need to ask is now, not later, because it involves the money of the people. That's one. So that's the reason why we asked, and technically, like I mentioned, these are the questions that we had asked earlier. So now, just a quick overview of this whole concept. I'm sure everybody here are very much well aware, but just a quick overview of where we view this issue and how important it is. You see, in our view, the discussion about governance have actually changed over the years. Previously, we are still talking about the concept of shareholders' primacy. What does it mean is that, well, I invest money in you, you as a company, you must only think about bottom line and give me back the money. It's about returns, it's about dividend. Of course, to a certain extent, now people talk about dog gift. But yes, that's what fundamental is. Well, the problem with that is that then the companies start to think about short-termism. They just wanted to make sure they make money so that they can give back returns to the shareholders. Dividends at the end of the year. How much dividends are you giving me? 8 cents, 6 cents, 5 cents. That's the bottom line. But again, now the discussion have changed. And why and how it changed, I will share with you later. But it have changed in terms of creating from shareholders' primacy now to talk about stakeholder value. So we are discussing slightly beyond just the interest of internal, which is the shareholders, but to start to talk about the importance of governance, people, talking about planet and prosperity. So that discussion have evolved from the old way of how companies has been managed to where we are now. So why? What was the push factor for this change to stakeholders' primacy? Number one, we are looking at the requirements across the world. You know, you are seeing cross-border expectation, cross-border requirements, where, you know, you have seen exports has been halted because of sustainability issues, and these requirements are growing day by day. You see a lot more jurisdictions are imposing those requirements. Making will share a bit more later, even here in Malaysia, we are requiring some of these requirements even more. So it's challenging to do business now. I have to think about economic aspect, making money for my shareholders, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I can go and sell my things out there. Remember what happened to our glove industry? Now look at what happened to our palm oil industry, how difficult it is to actually go out and sell products if we don't care and bother about sustainability. But at the same time, there was research saying that 1/3 of our companies have just started these initiatives. I think that's the reason why also government had to push this through requirements and law. And we can share later some of these findings and why we kind of agree that we are at a very nascent stage in terms of our disclosures and also initiatives. There's a huge demand as well with regards to companies doing good. And this comes not just from the moms and pops, but comes from the younger generation. It's interesting, when I attended general meetings on the ground, I have a lot of shareholders. I remember one meeting in north of Malaysia, in Kulim. That was a meeting in Kulim Tech Park, if I'm not mistaken, the place name, where there were a few young minority shareholders, I think about the age of 20, 30s, who came about and to the meeting and asked the chairman about question on sustainability. Why do you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you care about emission? Why don't you now invent your product to be aligned with sustainability matters? It's interesting to see that there's demand. And this is good. This is positive. Because, like I always say, it cannot just be MSWG fighting for this. That's the reason why I always call upon the minority shareholders to come. Let's not just talk about bottom line, but let's talk about this as well. So that's positive. And this is true. And, ICMR have done a study, and there's like so many of people responded to say that, yes, we care. We care about how company do good and how then company reinvent themselves. I think that's pretty much positive. This is typical. I think you've seen so many of these slides. You do ESG, better returns, and etc. I think that's pretty much given. Now, I wanted to share some of the feedback some of the observation that we had, and some of the feedback that we received from companies when we asked about issues on sustainability. These are some of the gaps that we observe, for which we are pushing companies to do better. And somehow or other, we hope that the new NSRF, the new Sustainability Reporting Framework, will be able to push for better disclosures by companies. So the next few slides, you'll be able to see either a disclosure from the annual report itself, or the feedback that we receive from companies from the letter or question that we ask. So typically, 5 days before the general meeting, MSWG will send a letter to the company that we monitor, asking various questions. One of it is on climate. They will respond to us. 100% of companies that we send letters will respond to us. So far, our statistic. And what we do is that we publish those letters on our website. So if you want to see the actual response for the companies that we monitor, you can go to our website, become our subscriber, do like, share, and follow us. My comms team is there asking me to say this. But you'll be able to see individual responses. Some are interesting, some are weird, some are sad, but you'll see. But I'll share with you some of it now. So some of these issues in disclosures is interesting. The first one is very much superficial and fragmented disclosures. Why we say that is that most companies now actually disclose activities. You see, because the listing requirements now require you to disclose common sustainability matters. So say, for example, hey, you have to disclose on the right table how many male, female, age group, how many carbon emission you have done, and etc. It's all about numbers. So they disclose. They have, I have 8 deaths this year. I got one company that disclosed that they have 8 deaths happening in the company that year. So we asked at the general meeting, hey, how come I got 8 deaths? Things happen, boss. That was the answer given to me. Similarly, that few weeks ago, we were there in one company, construction, same thing, 1 death. What happened? Oh, the person fell down the lift. Then, what happened? We will strengthen our procedures. But that's about it. There was no narrative, there was no story, there was nothing much in the annual report explaining what had happened and what are they doing moving forward to improve. Does it matter to us? Yeah, again, yes. Because why? Again, I kept on saying this to many of the chairmen of the company. Sustainability is equivalent to empathy. Without empathy, don't talk about sustainability. If it doesn't start from you having empathy towards the people that work for you, the environment that is surrounding you, then forget about it. So this is something that is important because it impacts the company. Just imagine the legal consequences that the company will face and whether this is sustainable or not. If you keep on losing 7 to 8 people every year in your company, something is wrong somewhere, I think. But yeah, so we have companies saying that, okay, they mentioned 200 kilowatt of solar, but there's nothing much more than that. We don't know what is the plan. Why do we do this? You want to reduce emission, understand, but is it right that you actually just install solar throughout all your factory and then we just wait and see the numbers for next year? Whether it goes up, whether it goes down, no. similar to this, you have a table as per what Bursa requires, but at the same time, it doesn't tell you what's the plan. We don't know whether or not you publish this number, are you going to what, increase? You're going to decrease? What's your plan? What's your target? There's nothing, pretty much. So this is example that we extracted from the annual report. The next one is actually lack of consistency and also comparability. This is an example, I'm sorry, it should have made it bigger. But technically this is what we're saying is that companies, when we ask question, if I can read out the question here, is that what additional initiative does the group have planned to increase reliance on renewable energy sources? The companies respond to us, this is exact word to word on the response. It says that the company will continue to explore additional initiative on renewable energy sources. And it stops there. I was like, huh? You see, last year, if I can just share with you, pick up any annual report, mid cap and small cap, you will surely stumble one thing, that the company invested in solar power. I can bet you. Because it's the easiest way out. Is it wrong? I'm not saying that it's wrong. It's fair. But the problem is it enough? Is it the only thing that can be done? Install solar power, I'm done. I'm sustainable, I'm green. I can tell Mekim, I did it, Mekim, and Mekim will laugh. But technically that's about it. So what's the plan on you managing sustainability, your emission, and is it enough just on solar power? But I can assure you, this is technically what it is. So similarly, the next one is that they have produced a table. This company doesn't even follow the Bursa listing rules on issuing CMS, but technically they just put up percentage of reduction of carbon emission comparison to the prior period approximately, and they just put 36%, and that's about it. There's no discussion at all. Why it matters for shareholders is that the only thing that I would know is only through corporate reporting. I'm not in the company. I can't go and knock on their doors and see, can I see your carbon emission for the year? I can't. It's all about what you disclose. The more you disclose, the better and well-informed we are in making decisions and putting proper check and balances on you as a company. Let's look at the next one. Limited board ownership and strategy integration. There's no discussion at this juncture in some companies with regards to sustainability at the boardroom. I think it's pretty much driven by the management or even management -1. So you'll be able to see, for example, we have a question that we ask. These are our questions and these are their responses. And these are what I mentioned just now. You'll be able to see it on our website. What are the group's further initiatives regarding renewable energy space? The response was that at this juncture, the group does not have further initiative for renewable energy. It's interesting. Similarly, does the group have any plans to subscribe to GET to reinforce support to sustainable energy sources? They said, at this juncture, we do not have plan to subscribe to GET. So there's no thinking, there's no plan, there's just no direction. And while at the same time, we are pushing for 2030 target, 2050 target, but pretty much it's not a priority for some of the companies. It's a challenge and also it's a concern. And this is not one example, we have few more of such. And this is one of the company that I'm just extracting. Finally, of course, boilerplate language and cut and paste culture. Again, because I would imagine maybe some of them hired a consultant to prepare, or at the very least, I'm not sure, maybe it's not vetted properly, but you have question, how does the group plan to achieve carbon neutrality, reduce greenhouse gas emission, and incorporate renewable energy sources? This is what we ask to them, and you'll be able to see that the answer that they gave is that they are committed, they are trying to do this, but that's about it. It's just a one-liner. So just imagine how serious companies are in taking this as an issue and addressing this issue. Again, we have to draw a disparity between the top 100 listed companies and the rest of the ecosystem. Yes, the top 100 listed companies host 80% of the total market cap. They are large. They have deep pockets. They can afford to put resources to make this change. But the reality is that 80% of the total composition of the listed companies, they are small mid-cap companies. And these are the ones that actually collectively emits more. And these are the ones that we have to push more So that's the reason why I kept on asking a lot of our minority shareholders to come join us and fight for this cause. But at the same time as well, I'm calling now the NGOs, your civil society, to also join us because it's hard. I don't know the technical details of certain things. Oil palm, for example, there's so much of things. I'm not in timber industry, for example. I'm not in the jungle. I hope I can go. We want to know the details so that we can ask and put companies more responsible on what they do. So my final slide is all about why NSRF matters. Making will explore a bit more detail on this, but we are talking about we wanted to raise the bar. We wanted companies to do better, disclose better, protect themselves from all these trade issues regarding sustainability, the trade barriers that is happening on sustainabilities, but also at the end of the day to create level playing field. At the end of the day, I need data to actually explain and tell me whether or not the company is doing well or otherwise. If not, you can just give me a one-para statement. We can't actually figure out what you're trying. So ladies and gentlemen, before I end, the most important thing is who cares? Each one of us have to care. The minority shareholders in any form, I believe every single one of you as an investor, whether directly through equity market or all other capital market products, start to ask questions. Ask questions either to the company or to the funds that you are invested in. Ask them, how do they manage this issue? Because it's no longer just an issue, it is actually now a crisis. I'll pass the floor to Mekim and we'll open the Q&A at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, thank you, Ismet. Thank you. Okay, so before we move on to my section, let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Mekim. Let's see, I'm an accountant by training. So I actually only ventured into the sustainability space about 2018. It was then where I had the opportunity to join the Bursa regulation team. So the pain you have in sustainability reporting for this year, some of it is due to me. The one that is coming is not really due to me, but that's what we're going to cover today. The other thing is, I know you can raise questions via the app, but if we're here, I think if you have questions along the way, you just raise your hand. It's easier that way. Yeah. So feel free to stop me at any point in time. So I believe some of you actually attended the morning session today, where ACCA actually did a very, very deep dive on how you would actually do and implement the S1, S2 itself. So that's not what we're going to cover here today. In this very short, bite-sized session, I'm actually just going to run through the NSRF itself, and mainly for listed companies, what are the requirements and how they apply to you. So before I continue, can I get a rough read of the room? How many of you here are from main market? Okay, very good. So how many of you here are from ACE? Okay, got ACE. I always say if don't have ACE, I will skip ACE. If got ACE, I will cover. Okay, non-listed. I suspect some of you are also service providers also, right? Okay, excellent. So, as a preamble, I think by now everyone is familiar with these two, right? Essentially, in June of 2023, the ISSB released two standards. What you need to understand is actually this. It is technically an incomplete standard. So let me explain. What you have is S1, which they call general, right? It's for general information. What you have is S2 for climate. In the coming years, in 2026, an S3, S4, S5 will be born, okay? So the way they have crafted this initial set is they said, if you have anything climate related, you use S2. If the thing you have shortlisted, for instance, cyber security, human rights, there's no S2, there's no S3, S4, right? They said refer back to S1. S1 has default items. So S1 is your fallback standard until S3, S4, S5 comes out. So as a suite, for now it works. That's how it works. So for Malaysia, we had a few presents in the last quarter of last year. Everything came out in the last quarter of last year, specifically the NSRF. So if you are familiar, I suspect most of you are familiar with this already, right? I think you've seen the speaker cover it today. So what I want to clarify is, if we look at it right, there are 3 groups. Group 1, where your main market listed issuer, 2 billion and above. For clarity, this 2 billion market cap is as at 31st December 2024, last year. So really, because this question comes out a lot during training. 1.9, 1.9, 1.9, 2. 1.9, 1.9. Congratulations, you are group 1. Conversely, 2, 1.9. 2. Congratulations, you're in group 2. We cannot game it anymore, it's past. Okay? So group 1, group 2, and then of course Ace. So the critical thing to note here, of course, is that you have reliefs, which are these 3 dots. These 3 dots, right? Let me cover the 3 dots. So let me do it this way. So they're basically saying if you are main market, these 2, you will have 2 years of relief. If you are Ace market and non-listed, with 2B revenue for non-listed, large non-listed companies. This one, they're looking at 2 years consecutive 2B. Okay. So there are reliefs before you have to apply the thing in full. So what are these reliefs? You have seen the set, there is S1 and S2, right? The first relief is, they said, for the first few years, you do climate alone, S2 is enough. We say it's enough because it's a lot to do already. Should be busy enough already, okay? S2 is enough. The next one they said is, when you are doing S2, you are allowed to scope it to only your principal activities. This one. So let me explain why. The ISSB standards actually say that the scope of your sustainability report must be your parent and subsidiary. If you're a Malaysian-based company, what you will notice is this. Bursa lets you choose your scope, right? So most of you actually do Malaysian companies. If you got Vietnam, China, you don't include one normally. Difficult to get data. Under the ISSB standards, parent and subsidiary. So they're saying, while you are doing your S2 during the initial years, you can still do only for your principal business. So the smaller subset can. What this means is when you go to full, you not only do S1 plus S2, you do for your entire group. 2 things, huh? Okay. And the last one, which has caused a bit of confusion these days. Permissible to not disclose Scope 3 emissions, except for categories already required by respective regulators. Okay. I want to ask, how many of you here are familiar with the common sustainability matters? Quite familiar. Once upon a time, there were 11 of them, correct? Now I only got 9 of them, right? Okay. In the 11 of them last time, it included waste and emissions, specifically Scope 1, Scope 2, limited Scope 3, which is business travel, employee commuting, right? Since Bursa has removed waste and emissions, nothing is mandated by Bursa. Therefore, you don't need to do Scope 3 for the relief period. Relief period. So I repeat, Ace got 3 years, Main got 2 years. First 2 years, you do climate alone enough. Climate for your principal business enough. Scope 3 no need to do. When you come to full, S1, S2 need to do. Need to do for your whole group. Scope 3 need to do. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay, Okay. The other thing I need to cover a bit also is assurance. Assurance, they're aiming for reasonable assurance, Scope 1, Scope 2, GHG starting 2027. If you read the NSRF, they are aiming for 2 years after you start S2. For Ace Market Company, you need to take note. For Ace Market Company, this one they're aiming for here. Here. It's during your relief period. 2. The other thing to remember is, this is actually not set in stone yet. it will be subjected to public consultation later. So if you have certain opinions, we suggest you make them well heard during public consultation. Understand? Okay, so we have covered this. The NSRF, the document itself, it provides the timelines. The timelines. The document itself is actually not legally binding. What needs to happen is that the acts all need to change. So you realize Bursa is the first one because it's the easiest to change the listing requirements. You will realize for SSM, Companies Act, it will take a while. So that's why your non-large listed companies are like 3 years later. Ta-da. So there'll be consequential changes. Because of this, you actually have to look back to your regulator to see what they prescribe, because the document only tells you the ISSB standards in general. The regulators can bolt on things on, which Bursa does. So I will cover that later also. But before that, let me just give a very brief overview of what it would be like to transition from Bursa's one to the ISSB standards. So for those of you who do reporting, you are quite familiar with these items. Your sustainability report currently has these items. You have governance, scope, basis of scope, your materiality, which you do based on what is important to business, what's important to stakeholders. You run a survey, right? You ask your stakeholders to rank. Right now you have policies, 3 years data, common sustainability matters. Performance target, performance data table, climate, some of you started. Statement of assurance. We are moving to this. The ISSB standards actually has 4 pillars: governance, strategy, risk management, metrics, and targets. This was covered, I think, quite extensively this morning. So instead of that, what I'm going to cover is, if you are actually starting out, what is the first thing you have to think about in a company? The thing everyone needs to understand is that the ISSB standards have a different way of defining materiality. For sustainability people, you are used to something called double materiality. The ISSB standards is single. So let me just check. How many of you here know the difference between single, double? Some. Okay. So for those who are not familiar, let me explain it like this. The ISSB actually defines material information for SROs. It's for those that can reasonably affect a company's prospects, right? We are looking outside in. You only care about it if it is financially material to me, outside in. What can floods do to my business? What can carbon tax do to my business? What does water scarcity do to my business? It only looks outside in, one direction. The frameworks you're more used to, like GRI, ESRS is Europe, the old Bursa one, is actually double. In addition to looking outside in, you also need to look inside out. It's something we call impact materiality. For instance, me operating, how much waste do I generate? For instance, when I'm working with my community, right? My community, I'm earning from them, but I also give back to them, correct? So you're looking at inside out. Before this, when you do double, either one you hit, also you will report. Double includes both, outside in and inside out. ISSB standard is single only, outside in. So if you can accept this, right? If you can accept this, it also translates to this. Most of you now have about 10 to 15 material matters on your matrix. Most of you. If that was double, can you accept that single will be a smaller subset? Can accept. Smaller subset, right? Before this, you do double, you do in and out. In and out. Now, for ISSB standards, you will only do one direction in. Only those that are in, you have to do ISSB standards. The rest, you can do whatever you want. If you want to continue your legacy GRI, go ahead. If you want to continue to chase your ratings, which most of you have, your FTSE, DJSI, you can continue. That's how it works. Can follow. Critical thing. Because what they covered this morning was how the standard tell you need to look at, consider SASB, then consider all the frameworks, right? You already have a subset to start with. You're not starting from scratch. So this is like the conceptual way, the shortcut way to do lah. Pragmatic way. So let me cover what this slide looks at. So essentially this is IFRS accounting. The ISSB calls this the building blocks approach. So you have, ta-da, all your accounting standards are here. So you see the second one, it only looks at investor-focused general purpose reporting. These are the ISSB standards. Everything else is outside. So I repeat again, if it is financially material to you, only need to do ISSB standards. So then the question we normally get is, how small can the subset be? Correct? So if I have 15 now, how small can the subset be? In talking to a few companies, some of them say 3. The largest number I've heard is 5. And the normal ones that people say are, if you have foreign labor, they tend to think of human rights, because obviously there are fines and obviously there are sanctions. The other one that's emerging is actually cyber security, because of the way AI is changing things, right? Climate, you have no choice, because you have to start with climate first, remember? Nature is also coming in. So depending, it's like this few. Then the question I get from other participants goes like this. Like that once I do already, right, can I don't care of everything outside? You basically have 2 types of companies. Companies who say, I'm doing this because it's important to me. I will maintain my double materiality stance. I will do my ISSB standards. I will do my plus. You have another subset of companies who basically say, I want to do compliance only. So if I do compliance only, ta-da, it's a small subset, right? Up to yellow only, you know. So then they ask, can we don't care about the rest? Since I just want to care about what is financially material to me. So this is a concept called dynamic materiality. Fancy term, just means this. Today what is financially material to me, tomorrow may not be financially material to me, vice versa. Example goes like this. Before this, I only operate in Malaysia. Now I operate in Philippines. My weather profile very different, huh? So before this flood, maybe not so important to me. Now now hurricanes and earthquakes. Before this, if I'm in Malaysia, only not important to me. Huh? If I enter into Philippines, it becomes a yes. Huh? Similarly, if I sell the property, I don't have any exposure in a certain region. It moves in and out, right? So it is a very dynamic assessment. The other thing to consider is that when you eventually do S1 and you have to juggle a few, you have to consider that decisions you make for one material matter will affect the rest. So the example normally is glove players. Glove players, they are actually pursuing very, very aggressive automation. Because if they can reduce their exposure to foreign labor, they automatically reduce their exposure to human rights allegations. Agree? But if the same company has a net zero commitment, did you not just increase your energy consumption and everything overnight? So you need to adjust that. There are consequential ripple effects to the rest. So in trying to address one matter, you may make another one a bit more, can see? So these are decisions, although this is actually a reporting standard, you realize the discussions, right, that I'm actually framing here are very C-suite management level discussions. A decision made, right, has ripple effects to many, many areas. And depending what you do, so for instance, if let's say that glove company already, I've reduced my reliance on foreign labor. I'm not saying local don't have human rights issue. I'm just saying in general. Then they may actually conclude human rights not so important, right? Then I no need to do ISSB standards for it anymore. I do GRI or whatever. Can follow? Can? So this is the fundamental first step you need to take. before you look at all, okay, this standard, need to report, what. Have this discussion amongst your team first. What is financially material, right? What is truly financially material to you? It should be a subset. Okay, then I need to cover Bursa's requirements. This one is main marker first. What I need to cover is, if you are 31st December 2024 onwards, currently your report, right, has management of EES matters, 3 years data, targets, and reported summary in a prescribed format. Statement of assurance, 9 common sustainability matters. This one is what is retained. There's been a lot of confusion in the market about the effective dates. I think some of you have raised this across. So for this one, I just put here. Bursa actually starts with December year ends first. Bank Negara starts with January. So that means your January, your March year ends, all these go first. Bursa always starts with the December of the year before. So this means if you are December 2024, March 2025, June 2025, this is yours. This is December 2025, March 2026 onwards. So if you refer to this small one, it should help. For this year, you're actually continuing with what you used to do, but by right, if you were main market, you had to do 11 CSMs, you had to do TCFD. TCFD was disapplied, the waste and emissions management is disapplied. Okay, this one everyone knows. The next year, if you are group 1, you straight away need to do S2 already. But you see the S2, right, they have this thing called quantitative information and statement of assurance. These items were retained. 3 years, statement of assurance. Common sustainability matters, throw away altogether. Clear? Common sustainability matters, next year onwards, no need to do one. So, the thing to clarify is that you need 3 years of data for metrics and targets. The ISSB standard only needs 2. Standard itself says 2. Bursa say 3. So you need to do 3. Listed company, Okay. Later I will show you the listing requirement itself, but for now you take it at face value, the subsequent slide got, okay? Now, if you are group 2, you get to have a slightly longer honeymoon, slightly only, doesn't help much one. Okay, you still do your management. You see, you have these 3 years financial data targets and the summary in a prescribed format. Performance data table, ladies and gentlemen, is meant for you to report every single indicator in the sustainability report. Most of you now have only done the common sustainability matters, correct? Most of you have done that. You are supposed to put every single indicator you have into the data table. So if you observe here, right, common sustainability matters no more. Data table still got. Okay, can see, If this year your report not yet come out, December year end, you put all your indicators in. Okay, data table was from the beginning meant to cover all the indicators in your sustainability report one. Most of you only did CSMs. So moving forward, when the CSMs are removed, you realize that the data table is still there. Then for those of you doing S2, you're asking what to put in your data table, right? Your metrics and targets. You put into the data table. Then after this 1 year honeymoon, then you do the same like the first group, which is main, like that. What you will realize is your material methods actually take this U-shaped curve. U-shape, So here very likely you have your 15, right? Your 15. Then here, Bursa doesn't have CSMs anymore, so you may reduce. Then here, technically for a few years, you only do S2. You do 1, S2. Eventually, you have to do S1, you may do a few. Do you realize it goes down? So if you're a compliance company, that's what it will look like. If you are a company that wants to maintain its ethos of double materiality, your number of material matters will be the same one. It's whether how many you report under ISSB standards, how many you report under your GRI, etc., etc. So it's a case, the number will be the same, it's just how many fall under ISSB, how many not. Can follow? Can I? Should ask question when you know if all. Normally here got question one. Because if not, I will go to ACE. So you see ACE, right? ACE company don't see common sustainability matters one. Don't have. So ACE, originally, they were supposed to do something akin to the main market this year. But there is an extra lead period for them. So this one, if you do a simple statement, follow the reporting guide, it will pass. Then here, they have something akin to the main market group 2. So you have management of ES, performance data table, 3 years data, statement of assurance. No CSM. Huh? Then when they move to S2, performance data table, 3 years, statement of assurance. Then this one is S1, S2. So ACE, you have a longer lead time, but still need to get started lah. Actually, it's a bit short. So let me run through the listing requirements proper so that you see where it comes from. I need you all to really pay attention to the first one. So I'm going to read it. A listed issuer must ensure sustainability statement is prepared in accordance to IFRS S1 and IFRS S2. I've had companies who come and ask me, they said they did their assessment. To them, climate is not material. Listen. Okay, I understand why that. Okay. But it was an ACE company. They rented all of their properties, and they mainly provide IT services, which means they send their manpower, go out, help people fix their IT. So in this case, right, they said, I do not own any property. My employee commuting, okay lah, got. But other than that, right, they said, climate is not really important to me. My employee welfare far more important to me. They make up most of my costs anyway, and they are the people I need to retain. So they said, for people like me, do I need to do? Then I tell them, your listing requirement says S1, S2, you know. In other words, right, S2 got no choice one. S2 got no choice, huh? No matter what you do, you cannot eliminate S2 one. Okay. So this is what will likely happen. When S3, S4, S5 come out, there will be a public consultation. Most likely. So that time, if Bursa say they want to mandate for all, it will become S3, S4. If it is here hard-coded like this, you S3, S4, no need to think you need to do. S3 will most likely be biodiversity, ecosystem, and ecosystem services. So in other words, it's TNFD. S4 will likely be human capital. It's actually based off, so this one was just formed, it's called TISFD, Task Force for Inequality and Social Related Financial Disclosure. This was only formed New York Climate Week last year. I think 2H, roughly like that. So the thing is like this. You see, right, once the new standard comes out, you will, during this entire period, please pay close attention to the public consultations, either done by SC or done by Bursa. If you have opinions, please give your opinions. Because if it is included here, you realize it's comma one. Once it's hard-coded here, you can't escape one. So to the companies who ask me, S2 can escape or not? S2 cannot escape one. Okay, so the next thing is metrics and targets, you need 3 years. ISSB standards say 2 years. Bursa say 3 years, so do 3 years. Statement of assurance has been retained. So again, I want to recap. Statement of assurance is just a statement to tell the market whether you have done assurance or not. Assurance itself has never been mandatory. Never. You just need to tell whether it was done by internal audit, you didn't do, or you done by internal audit or independent, like that. Then you see performance data table. You realize what they did was they updated the terms. So they said for metrics and targets. So your performance data to see in a prescribed format. So performance data moving forward when you do S2, S1, S2, whatever is in your metrics and targets, you replicate in the performance data table, which means you submit via Bursa link, click the report, lay in. And for future guidance, this one is as and when SMA referred to by the exchange, you normally look at PACE. So if you're familiar with SC's website, if you look at PACE, you will actually find the materials. Yep. And actually, that's the end of my questions. Not yet. So for instance, they're supposed to come up with an illustrative. I'm also waiting for it. They put that 2025 lah. It's in the FAQ. I think we're all waiting for illustratives of some sort. So right now, there are a few that are publicly available. One actually came out, SGX and ISCA. If you look at that, there's an illustrative. I normally ask people to look at that one because it has some regulator backing. I can tell you that EY has one, PwC has one, but I caution against using the consultants one a bit because sometimes they have very nice ones, no need to do until so nice one. So the regulator one, I found ISCA's one quite good because they actually show you, okay, since we have some time, the main problem of doing this standard is you have to disclose your financial impacts over current, short, medium, long term. Current requires you to pull from your GL. That means your finance teams must know how to tag. So for instance, if I had repair and maintenance, I need to know how much was due to climate weather events, how much the rest are normal repair maintenance, so that I can report it in my sustainability report. There's an item like this. Then that is current, short, medium, long term. Short normally would be your budgeting, my capital commitments. Medium and long term, which is defined by your respective companies, you will need your risk teams to do the modeling. If I keep the thing, if I sell the thing, the implications. Okay, the reason why this is important is because when you actually when you look at the disclosure that ISCA has, the ISCA and SGX one, at least they tell you how to use the reliefs. Must you disclose these monetary numbers? The answer is no, there's a set of reliefs. You don't need to disclose it if the number is, for lack of a better word, you can't defend it lah, right? So in other words, they say if you cannot identify it specifically to the item, you don't need to disclose. If the number exists, but you think on an amalgamated basis is not useful to your stakeholders, you don't need to disclose also. There are these few things. The ISCA illustrative, ISCA SGX one, actually has those notes. So it's quite good to see the regulator actually coming out and saying, yeah, we know companies will have no number to disclose first few years. Use the notes. If you read the consultants one, got number one. Okay, just saying. Some more? Mm. Yep. It will still be there. It'll still be there. So the table is maintained throughout. It's one of the few items that maintains. The data table itself, the statement of assurance, this is retained. So before this, most people just do the common sustainability matters. By right, you're supposed to do the CSMs plus everything in your report. By right. Then you're going to ask me, what's the point if the next year you're going to throw everything out? And here, no need to do, right? So that is where we leave it to the companies, because it comes back to why are you disclosing this? Because some of you have very large investors who want a lot of this information. Some of you were doing it for compliance. So we leave that to you. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, sorry, there are two. Oh.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the question is about how do I assess and rate quality of the reports as a minority shareholder or as a shareholder. I've mentioned this during my panel session on Monday. I said reading annual report is now getting to start to be boring because year in, year out, it's the same thing and nothing else that has been painted except for green things. Beautiful. I just wanted to share, if you have the opportunity, well, in my previous career, I worked with the SC. One of the things that we do was to develop Leading for Impact program, or for MEP, Mandatory Accreditation Program 2 for directors. Those programs are technically an introductory program for on sustainability that's mandated to all directors. So we were trying to figure out, let's do a case study. And then we were trying to try to see where can we get a good example or something that is very much there in terms of good reporting. And we stumbled upon an Australian company called Rio Tinto. In terms of whether or not they are good in sustainability, of course, some people may judge that no, some people would say yes. But what is important to note is that the quality of reporting, they discuss on issues. They had issues with the Aborigines. They have issues on land rights because of their mining company. So what they did was that they not just discuss about how do they identify, but also how do they mitigate and how do they manage. That is very much lacking at this juncture, and this is what we are looking at. Yes, whatever Mekim shared just now is something that we want to make sure people do comply because that's technically the flaw, but we want to understand a little bit more how then companies identify these risks, how do they manage these risks, and at the end of the day, how then they mitigate and also ensure that this won't happen again. This is the same question I asked in many EGM, but similar to the financial issues as well, because for example, people do capital reduction and all that more. I asked, at the end of the day, you know this happened, then what do you do next to ensure that this won't happen again? The qualitative assessment is now what we do. Just to share, one of MSWG product is actually on assessment. We assess all 800 companies in terms of the quality of disclosure. So it's not just about meeting the requirement, but the quality of that discussion. And of course, at the end of the year, we award these companies through our award program called NAQSA. And the aspect of that is on qualitative. It's not just about meeting the floor. It's about quality of how well you discuss. I think Mekim also is one of the people who helped me to assess as well on this company. So yeah, I hope I can. There's no real metrics at this juncture, but we have a guidelines in terms of determining how well they have done in terms of their disclosures. And I hope listed companies here moving forward, not just meeting the requirements that Mekim just shared with you, but give us a little bit more meat in terms of understanding what you guys are doing. So it helps us and it helps you managing your stakeholders. Oh, I'm very concerned about giving a rubber stamp recognition to that. Different companies have different approach in terms of reporting, especially different sectors are doing very well. I mentioned most of your top 100 companies are pretty much, not to say there, but pretty much more advanced in terms of their reporting. We have struggled in reading those smaller cap and mid cap companies. But at the very least, we can see that companies are moving towards a better disclosure. We have more information at the very least now. But still, being a minority shareholder and being an activist is never enough for me. So I just wanted to see more and more better disclosures. Maybe we can take one or two more questions before we close the session. Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay, so this one is a very good question. So if you go to the IFRS S1, the IBGs, what does it stand for? They specifically say that it is for parent and subsea. But if you go to the NSRF website, paste there, it says associate and JV. So the problem is that the standard says parent and subsea. The Malaysian FAQ says got JV, got associate also. Okay, normally the way we all do, right, we always do operational control, right? If we cannot control the thing, what is the point? I cannot implement my policies, I cannot improve the emissions rate of my associate. I have no control over their processes, right? So typically we have never reported them on. We have never included them. So actually the standard itself is parent subsea. Don't ask me percent, it's operational control, whether you can do it or not. So that is something I think to clarify with the local regulators, but the standard itself is clear, parent subsea. Yep. Yes? Yeah, so that's a very good question. So let me come back to the relief. So actually they fall under here. This relief that's actually available. So in the case of FIs, right? So for instance, if you have foreign banks with local subsidies in Malaysia, you're looking at very large banks, right? So they are the ones that fall under the 2B revenue and above confirmed fall. But they have a very specific relief, right? So they said that if you are using your parent, whether it's in Hong Kong, UK, or wherever, if they are doing ISSB or ESRS, interestingly, they actually let you have an exemption. So the question we have here actually is, it's a slight counter. Do you realize that this is actually a relief page? This is a relief page, huh? So then the question normally they pose is like this. Does that mean that once the 3 dots are over, the local banks have to do as well? See here? You see, sorry, let me go here. If you look at the NSRF document, you'll find that this box is a relief box. It's a relief box. But what you find is they have these 3 dots, right? But they're actually silent on whether this one is a relief that exists in permanence, or it's a relief that exists in accordance to your 3-year timeline. It doesn't have a color. So the thing is, if they can progressively do, that would be best. I think, if I'm not wrong, they're still asking for TCFD though. At this stage, they are still, Bank Negara still wants the TCFD disclosures now, even though Bursa has disapplied. Yeah, so they're continuing that. And then I think after that, they're progressively actually looking at getting all the banks on board to do this also, regardless whether, I don't want to say regardless lah. I don't really have an answer for you specifically when it will be applicable for, let's say, non-listeds in that sense, because to me, the drafting of this is a bit unclear. So there are some who have interpreted that actually it can be permanent, and there are some who say that it's 3 years. So most banks have started to prepare. So if they're starting with TCFD, they also, the parent will likely push down the other S2 items eventually. So as with Bank Negara, I think you are more, if you're an FI, you know that they will just send you a Dear CEO letter and things will just happen. So let's put it this way, only you know and only they know. Yeah. Sorry if it doesn't really answer, but that is the operating context. Yes? Okay, so we go back to an ethos question here, okay? Last question for the... Okay. I personally, ethos-wise, I subscribe to a double materiality standard. That means I believe that the reason why we do sustainability is because we have only one planet. If everyone does single materiality, if everyone only cares about themselves, how to safeguard my own resources, we will have a very difficult world to live in. So that's why, although when we cover this standard, we always say that for compliance, you just need to do S2, find which one is financially material, right? But if your company is of the ethos that double is important, you will likely retain some of your double materiality stuff. Yep. I'm also aware that some companies have resource constraints. I have received the counter argument that if I can downsize my entire report, I can take the same amount of money and put to actual initiatives. I have received this feedback too. So they said, let me just do S2, S2, S2 for as long until S3 is mandated. I take the money and I do actual initiatives. I have heard this before too, which I think those of us on the ground, we are aware that this is something we discuss a lot, right? We said, I am spending so much of my time tracking this data. I don't know who read this data also. Yeah. So there's a push and pull. Just bearing in mind that the ISSB standards is there for, it sets what is compliance moving forward. It will be the thing that your investors want to know the most. But ultimately, it's your company, right? And it's your stakeholders also. You realize that eventually, you will need your stakeholder support. In other words, right, the question people ask is that, if I'm a good company, will I get more sales in the long run? Will I survive longer? My business resilience, will it really be better in the very, very long run? It will be, but it's a very, very long time horizon. Okay, with that, I think, thank you. If you have any questions, I think you can come up and find me. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. I'm supposed to flash up this feedback form.